to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you and welcome. Kathy, when you can, do a roll call, please.
You got it. Sabin. Present. Schreiber.
Here.
Bergbauer.
Here.
Galogli.
Here.
Duskin.
Here.
Lobes.
Here.
Bartleson.
Here.
Heretta.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, I see Pastor Bill is in the house. Going to open us up in a prayer.
Please be with me. Dear God, I thank you for every one of these representatives of the Lockport community. Thank you for blessing our city. Thank you for the ability to be involved in guiding our city. I pray for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. I ask that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern, a sense for the true need of our people, a thirst for justice and righteousness, confidence in what is good, the ability to work together in harmony, and personal peace in their lives and joy in their task. But God, we want to especially thank you that Lockport is getting a Popeye's fried chicken. Amen.
Priorities. Thanks, Bill. All right, so we'll do our liaison reports, but I want to start off tonight, if you allow me. So, as you guys know, we're doing Lockport Shield. Shield was a group of volunteers that came together and were willing to help those most vulnerable during the this COVID pandemic that we have, and really that's what this is all about. I mean, for the most part, if you contract the virus, a lot of people don't even know they have it. Most people recover, but if you've got pre-existing conditions, or if you're elderly, or a number of other things, you could be very vulnerable. And for those people, we wanted to do what we could to protect them and to make sure they could stay sheltered. And the community was wonderful. And we had like 60 volunteers sign up for SHIELD to do everything from help with lawn work, to do grocery runs, to medication runs, whatever was needed. And it looks like it'll need to continue for some time here, and until everybody's feel like we're past this. And so I wanted to start giving thanks and recognition to those volunteers. So I asked Brittany to start inviting them in, a few at a time. So over the next number of meetings, we'll do that. We'll recognize our volunteers. So I have 3 here tonight that I wanted to give certificates, and the coveted Lockport ball cap too. So now normally what we do is I meet everybody over at the podium and shake hands and kiss both cheeks like Charles de Gaulle. But we won't do that tonight. Instead, I will thank you from here, and then we'll come down and I'll give you these, and I also have an outstanding citizenship pin. But the 3 people that are here tonight are Mike Hammerstone, just lives down the corner. So Mike, thank you for all that you're doing. I know that you're very involved and keep an eye on the community. So thank you, bravo, sir. And then there's Ken and Karen, and I don't want to butcher your last name. Can you say it for me? Kostecki. All right, so I thank you guys. Now, where do you guys live in town? Okay, thank you so much for taking care of folks, and really appreciate it. And actually, thank you for coming out here tonight, too, and letting us say thank you. I know that, it's work, and we appreciate it. So, yes, bravo. Thank you, everyone. So let me do this awkwardly, and then the whole COVID thing, and I'll meet you down here. So Mike, why don't you come up first? Give you the right certificate, and please take a pen. And then here's yours. So just recognition of all that you're doing for us, and thank you again, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
I appreciate it. All right. Ken, certificate for you. Please take a hat and a pin. And Karen, here's yours. Again, thank you guys so much. Sure. COVID handshakes all around.
Right.
All right, so over the next few weeks' meetings, we'll look forward to meeting other volunteers as well. And like I always say, you guys are welcome to stay at the meeting. If you get up and leave, no one's offended. So whatever you want to do, you're welcome to stay, go, whatever you want to do. But again, thank you. All right, any other liaison reports?
I have two things. I just wanted to announce that Rita Tinker from the police department will be celebrating 20 years with retirement then coming up, and so that will be Thursday, the 27th at 9 a.m. at the police department. And so thank you for your service, Rita. And then also the Safe Passage program, just a reminder that we still have that in case anybody knows somebody who is, has an addiction problem, they need to get help, come to the police station. We will take care of you, send anybody you know from Lockport that might need this, and we take care of the cost if you can't afford it. So it's one of those things where if you're struggling with an addiction, please come to the police station, and Terry Lemming said he will take care of you, right, Terry? Yeah. He's like, yeah. And then just really quickly, Lockport Love, I know we've got our great volunteers who come support us for our bowling, and I just recruited Mike Hammerstone there for helping next year, or the next one. But just know it's coming up soon. It'll be here before we know it. But the Shield has actually done a great job of actually collecting money for Lockport Love and getting donations too. So that's another plus to the Shield happening for Lockport. So just wanted to announce that too. So thank you.
Just to add on to what Catherine said about the
Safe Passage?
The Safe Passage. Chief, have we thought about possibly putting it through Nixle maybe once a month, just as a reminder that there is help? Some people may be a little shy and may not know what to do. And through the COVID-19, I know there's been a lot of mental issues with people, suicides and things like that. If we could put a monthly
That's not a bad idea, not a bad idea. I will tell you that our overdoses and our overdose deaths are not declining, but the people that are taking advantage of Safe Passage is declining. We had one a month ago, and we didn't have one for a year before that. Wow. And then, a couple years before that, we had like 18 people, so I don't know why people are not coming. If anybody has any ideas about how we can better advertise this, that's a good idea. Please let us know, because we're looking for advice.
Yeah, it would be. Let's have Amanda make some posts and start doing that.
Yeah, I just think that'd be a good way to get the message out, maybe once a month, just as a reminder, through Nixle.
Okay, thanks, Joan.
At any specific time to come in, or just preferred working hours, or any time?
They can come in anytime, and
Anytime.
it's free of charge. The council, we've approved in the budget $10,000, so it's free of charge, and no reason not to come in.
Okay, all right. We'll have Amanda reach out for any details. Okay.
I just have a question. I was wondering if we have an update on the CN tracks. I was down at Public Landing for dinner on Sunday, and the tracks went off about 4 times an hour with no trains coming by. So I was wondering.
Was it just the pedestrian crossing or the big
that
crossing?
one, 9th Street and 10th Street? We're all going.
Even after they did all this work?
Yeah, they're all going off about 4 times an hour. So I just wonder if we have an update on that.
Yeah, when you brought that to my attention, I wasn't aware we were having those failures again, but we did see CN crews down there working in the ballast, which is the heavy stone under most of those lines, and they were always trying to, get those fixed. They did complete work with the cantilever recently, so we don't know if it was some kind of, signal failure with that. We'll follow up again with CN, and sometimes they're great with information, sometimes, to be honest, not so much. So we'll, other than that, event, I'm not sure we've noticed too many, and I think later this evening with the agenda with the cameras, we'll be able to document that and provide them more data, for how many occurrences we have with that. But it definitely backs up traffic, when it happens. So, but
All right, well, thanks for staying on it. Keep us posted. All right, anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I have something. Those that haven't driven through the older section of town where we're doing all the road construction this year, looks like we're almost done. They have done the final layer, I think, on all the streets on the north end. They're down on the south end today, putting down the final layer on 18th Street. And once the sidewalks get in and the grass, the side gets put down, it should be only a couple more weeks, and this year's inconvenience will be over.
Did you say they got that first coat finally down on Madison, all the way east? Is it down now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay. Yeah, it'd be nice when they wrap it up, so it'll look good. So, it looks good already, actually, but that finish coat really makes a difference, so. All right, anything, Joanne, what do you have?
Yeah, I just wanted, as a reminder, we still have until September 16th for people to send in their recommendation for the beautification recognition, which will be, the deadline is September 16th here at the meeting. So if you know of your neighbors or you want to volunteer your own home to be recognized, please do so. We still have plenty of time.
And where do they do the application?
Right online. They can go to the City of Lockport
Okay.
website, and then they can find where the thing is.
Okay, got it.
Deadline?
September 16th. And we have quite a few entries, so I can't wait.
Okay. All right, very good. All right, nothing else? Then we'll move on. Lance, what do you got? Makers Park update.
So I'm going to move over to the podium because I have no clue what's on the screens because I don't have. Got it? All right. So many of you may remember this from many moons ago, given how COVID has impacted us. This is the Maker Park study that everybody approved. I'm going to take this off because otherwise you won't be able to hear me. That we approved early 2019. And this was in response to some of the work that the mayor was doing about the Chevron property and how we could ultimately envision some level of makerspace over there in a pretty large format with an internal courtyard and a series of those different things. What we wanted to do to advance that effort was to dive into that a little bit, dive into the different types of markets, dive into the different types of technologies and different types of people that might be able to use those types of spaces to be able to better understand who might go there, what kind of spaces they need, what would we have to provide, a bunch of those different types of studies that will help inform that process. We had a team work really led by a market analysis team who met with a series of different makerspaces, a series of different institutions, potential partners, some of which the mayor had already engaged in the discussion, to get a sense for what their interests were, to what they wanted to put in here, what they would integrate into here, and how they would best partner with the city. All of those things are documented in the study. We'll post this online so that everybody has access to it from the city. But the key findings that came out of this, let me back up one step. The other thing that they did, which was really helpful, was they did a number of case studies. Maker parks don't exist everywhere. They're not as common as a restaurant, and so they are somewhat specialized. And so we felt it was a really important part of the study to do some case work on other maker spaces, both how they've succeeded, but also those that have failed, to better understand why those that have failed, why those that have succeeded. That helped us kind of get together some better findings so that we could better understand what we might be able to do to set us up for success if and when it goes to the Chevron in a much larger format than what we might do in a kind of a first phase study or first phase implementation. So the key findings, really three main ones. Successful projects shared the following in common. There's usually a catalyst that comes from government that collaborates with some level of private industry. It could be an institutional user like Joliet Junior College or someone else, but there is always a partnership there, and it's almost always started by some sort of governmental agency or economic development group. There's also a partnership with multiple stakeholders that help inform the ongoing direction of the space. Whatever the place is, there's typically multiple stakeholders, whether that's corporations, whether Citgo would get involved, or Panduit, or many different organizations would get involved in this and really help to inform the direction going forward, because they pull the information from the places that they work in to better inform what we might set the direction for as we develop the makerspace. Unsuccessful projects shared the following in common. they're too narrowly focused. So one of the ones that we did was a space that was done up in DuPage County that has ultimately failed at this point and closed. They were narrowly focused on digital stuff. So it was all digital all the time. Ultimately, they didn't find it had enough support, and it folded. A lot of investment, a lot of time, a lot of effort went into creating it, but it was too narrowly focused. And that really played true in a number of the different case studies. Second thing was a lack of support from the community. So getting community buy-in, getting people that are invested in it and engaged and involved in it is something that was really important, especially for the smaller spaces. There are some, like the one that Jay Margalis, who runs our space lab, who runs that in DePaul, where the institution, it's basically them, they do all the work. But in a lot of the ones that are really done from the ground up, it's really community involvement. And for ours in particular, I know that one of the mayor's focus items for this is to get people engaged into these spaces so that they become their own, so that we can really utilize all the talents that we have within the city to be able to engage them in some sort of small business endeavor. They didn't have funding models that were substantiated. So a lot of them went into it with a funding model that just could not bear weight. It didn't have a mechanism where the fees supported the investment in the rent, or it supported the investment in the space, or it supported the fit out. A lot of them run on subscription basis. So, I know Space Lab has some level of subscription base. The way that Space Lab is able to do it is there's some level of underwriting of the rent. Obviously, because they're in Central Square, they tend to have an ability to be able to leverage some of that space to reduce their costs and make it more affordable for people to come in. A lot of these built new buildings, and they went into huge, supremely tenant fit out spaces that had every whiz bang thing you could ever imagine, and the rents became astronomical, and they could no longer make those numbers work. And a lot of times what we found is to make those numbers work, you had to have a significant corporate sponsor who was saying, I will dedicate 25 of my employees to be in this space all the time to do some level of innovative work on behalf of our company. Those are the ways that they really made the numbers work. And a lot of them didn't have that. And then on the Chevron site, we need to create that as a recognized destination first before it becomes a destination for the makerspace. So that's focusing the Canal Days. It's focusing if the Soaring Group would have their powwow there. It's how can we just continue to create repetitive events there that make that a recognition for the community and for other people around here, that they know where to go when it's there. Because it isn't exactly right in the middle of everything. It is a little bit off the beaten path, but it offers us a lot of space to do a lot of large commercial gatherings points to make it a recognizable place. So those are the key findings on that. The overall direction of everything, if you read through this whole thing, the overall direction is saying that Space Lab downstairs is really a foundation for growth. So this is like the exploratory moment where we can take this and say, is there enough foundation at this small scale to start to grow this up? Growing into an existing building or an existing site is like the next level up. So you'll see in a couple slides the Sloan pad and the Sloan building. That could be our next level up as we start to prove up the market to see if there are more than 2 or 3 or 5, 6 people that would want to invest in a space like this. And then the last step would be to construct the full Maker Park. And there's lots of different operational things. This phase piece that you have on your screens right now, we're really like in phase 1, fortunately not in COVID phase 1, but in phase 1 of this overall process, and really only the first 3 items on that list is really where we are right now with kind of the way things stand. There's a lot of work to be done to fully bring the Chevron full makerspace that the mayor has envisioned to life, but we think there are a lot of great steps that we can take to start to prove out this market. Potential partners, a lot of education, business, other maker spaces, arts groups. Some of them already have roots and foundations in Lockport. Some of them are tangential to Lockport and around us, and others have invested in maker spaces in the metro area before and are familiar with them. So a phased approach. So we want to create more attention. We want to look for this opportunity at the Sloan pad to maybe have an indoor-outdoor location if a developer, whether it's Peter Limburger or somebody else, are looking to buy that building, having some indoor-outdoor relationship with them and our pad starts to create that attention and awareness. It's a smaller investment to get started, so we're not building a whole complex right off the bat. This allows us the ability to make some small investments in order to create the place and the space to be able to advance these efforts. And it also gives us time to build that awareness on the Chevron site. So while this is all getting going, we can always be doing things on the Chevron site to build that awareness until we get to the full phase. In the document, this is one of the plans that showed some starts of ideas about how we might be able to frame out this whole space. So it incorporates the building, the access down from 6th Street, which on this graphic is on the left side of that screen, the makerspace or the cargo containers. One of the items that's more detail in the graphic is, can we use cargo containers as kind of first phase boxes so that somebody could buy that cargo container, locate it on site, retrofit it, have it done up, connections that they need, whether it's electricity or water or something like that, they would be able to both be able to locate it there and also pick it up if they want to go move it somewhere else. So trying to create some level of flexibility with this. So this started to show some ideas about how we might be able to lay those out to create a space that might work. So what's the first step? The great thing is that the first step is already completed. So we've already demoed the building out there. We've got a surface that is workable. The next step is really, how do we create that functioning short-term place? Again, thinking of this in phases and steps, that includes the bike path, that includes additional parking to support and leverage maybe what might go on in the building. It creates flat areas for flexibility and a landscape to soften the area. Later tonight, Brent and Ben are going to be presenting some additional improvements that we want to make to the Sloan pad that start to accomplish a number of these objectives. One of the really important items on that is actually getting rid of the elevated portion of it, with the exception of the far south end to support that utility shed that's out there, but creating that flat surface so that we get the optimum amount of flexibility to be able to allow people to go and move their things where they need to. And in the very short term, it creates a significant amount of parking that currently doesn't exist back there. So whether we can support the public landing with that additional parking, or if there is an investor that buys the Sloan building and they need some additional parking to be able to support their business, that gives us the opportunity to do those things, which is a really great improvement to have in that location in the short term. You can see on this graphic kind of the darker orange rectangle. That's that Second City Greens that we've been talking about for a while. That's, as we've talked with them, that's their preferred location to be at on the site. They think it'll give them some great visibility. I know that the mayor's been working with them on some graphics to be able to put on the side of their container to not only highlight who they are, but also highlight the city as a whole. So that's a great start to that piece of it. You can see general area where the bike path could go. You can see how we're creating that parking space in the location, how we would leverage the rest of the space. And then ultimately the next step after that is, here are some opportunities to start integrating those users. So the typical cargo containers are 8 foot wide by 20 feet long or 40 feet long. Those are the two really general sizes of it. We think there's some great opportunities to be able to locate some of those throughout this site. And what we would do is we would take the concrete area that in the first phase was just additional parking. We would leverage that to place the cargo containers in those locations and still allow for people to be able to walk around the concrete areas and still retain additional parking that would be in the asphalt areas from that first phase. It also offers us the opportunity to coordinate with that building developer to the north and make that indoor-outdoor makerspace. I call it a test lab, just as the first phase of this. And ultimately, going back to the report, this helps to prove up the demand to enlarge it going forward into the future. Here are some different cargo container retrofits that have been done throughout the country. These things are happening everywhere. Mayor and I had a conversation with Red, who runs the fire training systems, and he also does warehouses on wheels up in Lamont. He's actually got two things. We thought they were separate owners, but it turns out they were the exact same owner. And we started to talk to him about these things, and he said, we can totally do them. They're super easy to make. He's like, you know, if I'm going to stick my thumb up in the air on a estimate, it's like $20,000 to retrofit a cargo container. So as we've been just tossing around ideas internally, it's like if a user, somebody wants to spend $20,000 or $30,000, get their retrofitted cargo container, locate it on this site, we would do it just like we would with Second City Greens. It's a license agreement. We work out that piece of it there. They have an opportunity to have a business for $20,000 to $25,000 and be able to operate out of it. It becomes theirs. If they ultimately decide they want to move, they can pick it up and move it off the site and take it somewhere else. But we think that this is a really flexible way, and it really plays into what Ben and Brent are going to talk about later with the improvements that we want to make to the pad to really start to create that flexibility. Obviously, in the future, we'd love for this to all move over to Chevron and it becomes this wildly successful thing, but we think this gives us a really great first start on getting this thing up and moving, both in an indoor application in partnership with somebody and an outdoor application providing the space for somebody to actually be able to come in and run their business. I don't know if you want to say a couple
Yeah,
additional
sure.
things on that.
Thanks for the presentation, Lance. It's great. You know, one thing quickly aside, Space Lab downstairs when they moved in, you know, one of the things that they did, some of you may be aware, but they made thousands of face shields and, you know, down there and gave them to first responders, local hospitals, our police department, and other people. And they were really great at mobilizing because they had the equipment, they had the 3D printers, the cutters, and they just mobilized and made a lot of great things just downstairs here in our first floor. So just having Space Lab and watching how, you know, a small operation like that can mobilize, and it was fun to see. You know, as far as this kind of phased approach, I think is fantastic, and the opportunities here before us, right? We have the Sloan pad now. We basically have our first container user, which is Second City Greens. So to have, you know, a hydroponic farm down there is really fun. If they expand and have other trailers, that's great. If we move into something like this that has either maker spaces or retail spaces, the thing I find so powerful about it, Lance, is that, you know, it's so hard for young people to get a start, right? It's like, you know, people, they want to do business. It's like either, you know, they have to rent and that money just goes out the window over time, or they have to pay $1 million for a franchise. I mean, it's true, literally for, you know, $20,000, maybe another 10 for equipment, you know, you could have your own business ready to go, right? And it's there, and it's yours. And that's the beauty of it. It's about having people who have buy-in. It's about people who have autonomy, and that's what I think places like this create. And they just have their own energy because of that. You know, it's like, and so utilizing this space is really strong. And how fun is it that, like you said, American Fire Systems just down the street who can make these kinds of things. And they just, you know, if you guys remember, they recently annexed into the city and are part of us now as well. So that's great news. Another thing is the building just north of the pad, you know, that one is still in existence. You know, we had talked about that also being part of this phased-in approach. I know that I had conversations with Joliet Junior College and Peter Limburger and making that into an indoor space. And even with Joliet Junior College, their vision is to have, you know, smaller kitchens in there that people can basically do makers parks, but for food, right? They're just, either they rent the kitchen space and, you know, they're there for a time, and, you know, it becomes a destination food place that turns over all the time, right? Because it's not necessarily meant to be a permanent place, but it's meant for small people to go in, and the affiliation with JJC after they graduate is great. And it goes back to that other aspect that you talked about in the feasibility study, is that having a mixture, right? It's not just about all being electronics, or it's not about all food. It's having a great overall mixture of different disciplines in here are really strong. So that's great. And the other good news is CL Enterprises, they are going to close on that north building. So they've been one of the partners in the feasibility study, very active. They're the same people that are building the Tangled Roots Lock and Mule restaurant. So they have informed me that, yes, they are closing on that building. So it's with the desire to be part of all of this. So this kind of phased-in approach is great, and you know, I think it's very exciting. So thank you for the presentation. Yeah. And, we look forward to our first user, Second City Greens, coming here in a couple months. Any questions, thoughts, concerns?
It's great.
Okay. All right, fun. All right. Well, thanks for that. I know that we'll be talking about the pad and some improvements in a little bit, so we'll get to that. All right, Terry, you're up. Purchase
Mr. Mayor,
of,
members of the City Council, PD1 is a request to purchase a camera system for the downtown area to preserve city assets. By way of history, the last few years we have had flower pots, we've had the structures around our flowers at 9th and State destroyed, we've had light poles destroyed. This camera system is designed to catch the people who do it. The way we do it now is we have a field camera. We have 2 field cameras, one by the Illinois State Museum, one at 9th and State. The field cameras are for hunting, to capture a deer walking by once in a while. And what our issue is that the car, it's motion activated, so the battery's got to be changed every couple days because of all the cars, and we have to give a bucket truck. Brent has to send a bucket truck, and if we have damage, we have to somebody have to come and get the SIM card out. But we've been very lucky, in about 3/4 of the time we've been catching them. But this system is high tech. This is real time. We'll be able to capture license plate faces, and we're going to have 10 cameras. Actually, the system is set up so the 10 cameras will feed that signal to a server at City Hall. Commander John Arizzi actually put this packet together for you, did a lot of work. This research started a year ago, and when we did the research, we were ready to present to you a proposal 6 months ago, and we asked the vendor for a test shots, and we realized it couldn't get a license plate, which is the reason we wanted the whole system. So we had to start and get new vendors again. We have test shots. We believe we have the best system we can get for the lowest price. The system will be paid for by federal seizure money that we have right now. That is a restricted account. It can only be used for certain things. Surveillance system is one of them. We have over $800,000 in the account. It's a healthy account right now. The 2 vendors we have right now for this proposal is Minuteman Security Technologies. Their proposal was $78,444, and Activity Solutions at $119,100. We believe that the Minuteman Security Technology is actually a better system. It was designed better, and we believe it'll do everything that we want to do. The system is warranted for 1 year. We have $1,300 in licensing fees every year, and that's about it. I'd be welcome to take any questions. There's actually more. I could get into more of the technicalities if you'd like. Tell you about where the cameras are going to be and how they're going to be situated. But we believe we would be able to capture pretty much anything that goes on from 8th and State to 10th to 9th and State, 9th to 10th, and halfway down 10th Street. We will get the scale house bathrooms, the Illinois Museum, all the flower pots, the back of Paradise Bay and the back of Embers, as well as the intersections as well. So I'd be glad to take any questions if you have any.
Well, one thing I'd say is I really want to emphasize these are not red light cameras. There's no mechanism to catch people who run lights. This is not what it's about. This is 100% about us trying to deal with damaged property that happens. It's no secret that we live, that 9th and 10th is an intersection of 2 state routes that, is a busy intersection with everything from 80-foot box trucks to motorcycles to cars, and, it takes a beating down there. When people run over stuff or smash into things, everything's, well, it wasn't me, right? So, which we had just the other day. Somebody backed into one of the flower pots, knocked it over. They found him at Speedway.
This camera system did not capture him. We had a witness, and our officers caught him.
Yeah.
And we also had a fatal motorcycle crash about 3 or 4 years ago at 8th and State. This camera would have picked up the license plate of that car that hit that motorcycle.
Yep, and ran off. So those things are what this is about. It's not about traffic or red lights or any of that stuff. So I just want to emphasize that.
It'll also get the train gates,
Yeah. We can watch.
actually from your cell phone. Each of you can program your cell phone.
My alert will go off at 2 a.m. Son of a train gates again. All right.
Is there a possibility that you can extend that warranty? Can you ask them to extend the warranty past a year?
I'm sorry, say it again, Kristen.
Extend, Minutemen Security Technologies, you said there was a year warranty on that. Is it possible to ask them to extend it? Because there's such a
Sure,
price difference.
we could ask them.
between the two.
The normal, I'll be glad to ask them. The normal procedure is 1 year, and then we have to get our own, I don't really prefer a maintenance contract. I prefer a vendor that we could use to call when we need them, because we're unique as a user, because we can ask Public Works to clean our lenses every year. We don't have to have a vendor do that, and we don't have to have a vendor. We don't have to use their lift trucks. We have them at Public Works. So I'll be glad to ask them, though. I'll give you an answer, too, probably tomorrow.
Anything else?
No, I think that's great. I know we looked at it before, and it was kind of put on hold, and now it's back, so I'm happy we're getting those systems.
All right. If there's no objection, we'll put it on consent. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Text amendments to Code of Ordinances. What you got, Lance?
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. These are really 5 different items that we are looking to update. We had Plan and Zoning Commission review these at the last meeting. They were fully in favor of it. The 5 areas that we're looking to adjust are updating the bulk requirements related to accessory structures, so that's your detached garages, your sheds, things like that. It's creating new requirements related to micro pantries and micro libraries, as we've started to get more and more requests, especially with COVID and a bunch of those types of things happening. We want to make sure we have something on the books to be able to help manage that. We want to adjust the requirements for cargo containers. Goes back to our Maker Park presentation. Our ordinance never reflected anything that somebody would be in a cargo container and do something. Our ordinance is all about these are sitting on trucks and we're going to stack them 25 high and all that kind of thing. We just need to adjust it so that it reflects some of the opportunities that we have in today's environment. We want to resolve a little bit of duplication between the development and the zoning codes that occurred with one of the details, and then make some changes to our administrative variance parameters. It's really only one change. Go through those in a little bit of more specific detail related to that. So the accessory structure, this is specific to the detached garage. For some reason in our code, we limit detached garages to a 15-foot height, which I have no clue why. It doesn't allow somebody to build a garage that's reflective of their actual house. And one of the things that we always ask for is that any accessory structures be consistent with the architecture and the appearance of the existing house. Having a 15-foot requirement as a maximum height doesn't allow nearly anybody to do that, because that basically gets you a slope of about 5 to 12 on a roof, which isn't anything. And so we want to be able to provide the people the ability to reflect their architectural character of their main house with what they do with their garage. It's particularly important in the downtown district. There aren't a lot of detached garages everywhere else in the community where we've built almost all attached garages, but we find a lot of people in the downtown that want to rebuild their garage. They're like, I can't even make this look like my house. So we want to lift that cap, and just have it be consistent with the existing architecture and the existing roof pitch on the main building, but never taller than the primary structure itself. So the garage will never be taller than the actual house, but we wanted them to give them the flexibility to actually reflect that character of their primary residence. For the micro pantry and micro library, we've gotten a number of requests. One of the things that we want to make sure happens is that we don't end up with a micro pantry and a micro library 50 feet away from each other throughout downtown. We want to make sure that people can walk to them so that it's accessible. We want to make sure that people have access to them. We also want to make sure that they have some level of consistency in the look and the construction method. Because what we find a lot of times is somebody will submit basically a finger sketch of what they want to build, and they'll put it on like 2x2 posts with, you know, like a sheet of plastic on the front to protect it. We've gone online, we did a lot of research to try and find a detail that would be consistent, that would work well, that our inspectors would know how it gets built, how it should get footed, all those kinds of things so that we can do an inspection. This also allows us to set up that application for them to be able to do it, and it allows us to do the inspection when they dig the post for the foundation, and then once it's complete as well.
And does it also require, make sure we have, somebody has ownership over it, whatever property it's on, it's like you're responsible for this?
So this will get treated as an accessory structure, so it needs to follow a series of the different zoning requirements as well. We also request that the people that own it manage it. So they are responsible for the upkeep, they're responsible for repairs, any of those types of things, because it is on their private property. It gives us the opportunity to also do code enforcement if it's not being maintained well enough as well.
So it will not be in the parkway, it has to be on their property then?
It has to be on private property, and the changes that we're making also set distance aparts. So, you know, we set it, I don't remember the exact number, but I think it's somewhere around 5,000 or 500 or 1,000 feet, somewhere in there, that these have to be located apart from each other. Is it 1,000? Yeah, so 1,000 feet apart from each other. Those are the major changes with that one.
Is there going to be a fee to establish a new little library or box? No. What about the existing ones? I believe there's one in Cedar Ridge that's just in a common area.
Yeah.
How do you address those existing ones then, since they're not maintained by a specific person?
Yeah.
It is, so one private property just maintains that one? Okay, so, because it looks like it's just at the corner. But, so each person then will go back through and track who's in it and then put that person's number and contacts? Or how are we going to go back and track? You know, there's one at the Township Building, the Lockport
Yeah.
Township Building.
So, I mean, whoever's property it's on, they're responsible for it. So if the township leadership changes or there's no consistent staff person, whoever's in that role is the person that's responsible for it. We did get a request from one of the churches, local churches. They would be responsible for that. I know that we have one over on the corner. There's one over by the credit union. You know, those are all on private property as well, fortunately. And so they are responsible for that. But having this code change allows us to then, our inspector or somebody else can go out and inspect it, make sure it's functioning, make sure it's not going to fall over. And if it is, then we can alert that private property owner that there are some issues, and here's an application, and here's a better detail to use if you want to replace it.
So that'll give us an opportunity to know how many are out there too. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll be able to track it, so we'll know who pulled a permit for that structure, and we'll be able to know exactly where they are.
So will we go back through and track all the ones we have already, or no? Or
I think one of the things that we probably should do, just to identify the distance where those are, is get a listing of where the current ones are so that we can draw that radius when we do get an application and say, you know, you're like 250 feet away from this one down here. Yeah.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Will County GIS does have a layer on their GIS system that has them located throughout the county. So we can use that as a first reference and then go field verify some of those things as our inspectors are out and about. So the development code and zoning code duplication, this is really two items. One is the residential driveway width, and the other one is the structural number of the slope. So when the development code was kind of redone in 2018, these were two items that didn't get pulled out of the zoning code when that got pulled out. So this is really just an administrative cleanup. The development code and the city's engineering department already has details for both of those things. We just don't want it to be in two places so that when an applicant or an engineer is looking to grab those details, they're not seeing conflicting information in two spots. So it's really an administrative cleanup, but we wanted to do that anyways. And lastly, for the administrative variance, one of the things that we run into a lot, especially in the RO district, because a lot of the lots in the RO district are non-conforming. They're too small, they're not the 12,000 lot that we have everywhere else. That's the same throughout an entire subdivision. We've got a lot of variety in the downtown. So when we get homes that are larger than the lot coverage requirements, or we get people have built patios 20 years ago and they're still there, and so the impervious coverage is more, we run into the situation a lot where people are forced to go through a variance process that is ultimately larger than the administrative variance that I can grant with a 20% variance from the base zoning requirements. So for an example, if an existing home in the downtown is on a smaller lot and their lot coverage with the home is, let's just say, 65% in its base condition, that's already 5% over what we allow in the zoning code. Let's say they want to put a 1-foot roof connecting their garage and their main house. They have to go to Planning and Zoning Commission because that basically goes over the 20% number that I'm allowed to grant administratively at a lower cost. That cost to go to Planning and Zoning Commission is $600 to be able to have it presented in front of Planning and Zoning Commission, where it's $350 if you go through the administrative process. So the change that we're asking for in the zoning code alternative is to allow the 20% administrative number to start from the existing condition as opposed to going back to what the zoning code is in its base criteria. And like I said, we've only had like maybe 1 or 2 cases in the newer subdivision areas, but it happens a lot in the downtown. The example that I gave is a real situation. This guy is on a small lot. He's got a house and a detached garage that he wants to connect with something overhead to just protect it from snow so he can go from his garage into his house and not get wet. It blew through the administrative variance that we could grant, and so he had to weigh whether or not he wanted to do an actual improvement to his house that would make his house look better, because he would have to pay the extra money to go through the Planning and Zoning Commission route. So that's the change that we're looking for.
Yeah, I like this. This is, for 7.5 years, this is the most frustrating issue for me in regards to variances and the cost to go through the process, to the point where I'm absolutely certain that people have not gone through the process because of the cost. And so I felt I've always felt it's very restrictive. Every single person that's been in Lance's position and I said, we've got to come up with a solution. I've been Ben and Steve's here, I don't know, hundreds of hours on this subject over the years. This is a good improvement. I still think the cost for the administrative variance is too high, but I can live with this, and because it's only time I've ever had to come across, and of course the people that I represent in the older section of town, this is an issue where they just get handcuffed to conform, take a non-conforming piece of property and conform to an arbitrary standard that we literally took from Buffalo Grove in 1994. And so this is an improvement. It may not be the best thing we can do, but it's certainly a huge improvement over what we currently have. And I think it's going to allow people in the older section of the town to be able to do improvements to their property, which they just simply can't do now.
Yeah. And this is really a precursor to the overhaul that we're going to do to the zoning code later this year, starting in August, later this month. This is one of the components that we're obviously going to need to review as we look at bulk regulations and all the things that impact development within the community. So any questions on any of those 5 items?
I just really quickly, so if somebody comes and asks like that scenario, are you going to every house then and verifying it personally, or are you just doing?
When somebody comes, they're required, they make application for a building permit, and that's typically what trips it. And so they make application for a building permit to put a roof to connect 2 buildings or something like that. That gets reviewed by our building inspector and our planner. Both of them look at the overall site plan, they look at the improvement plan, they calculate all the square footages for the lot coverages and everything like that. They identify what the number is. If it goes over what our thresholds are, that starts to triggers a phone call, says, hey, you're over the threshold, you need a variance for this. They then have the choice as to whether or not to go through with the variance or pull the plug, as Darren kind of alluded to. We do get people that just simply pull the plug. They're like, look, I'm trying to make $1,000 improvement and you're going to charge me $600 to go through a process that I don't think I want to go through. And so this offers us the opportunity to look at it differently and be able to have a little bit more flexibility with how we evaluate some of these projects. And, whether it's happened consistently in the past, we've probably had 5 or 6 projects so far this year that have gone through this exact scenario.
And what would the turnaround be then? Is it like within a week, or?
That's the other benefit of this, is we can turn these around literally in 2 days.
Oh, in 2
if we
days,
need
okay.
to. If we get the report or the permit set, we give them a call, we say, here are the issues, here's what we can do to resolve this issue. Do you want to go through that? Then they make an application for the administrative variance. We've already reviewed it, so I sign off on it, they pay the fee, and we're done. Not all are that easy. We oftentimes have to go out and inspect the property, and the building inspector reviews what they want to do and a lot of that kind of stuff, but
Much faster than waiting for the planning meetings.
yes. Many of you might be familiar with the 707 project that we had at the last Plan Commission meeting. We started that process in March. We got them into Plan Commission in July.
Good work, Lance. I appreciate all the effort you did on this. I do have one question about, Darren brought it up about the reduced fee.
Yes.
Great, but how do you justify that number as opposed to, say, $100 or $150? Like, where do you get up?
Yeah, so back in 2009, I believe, there was a study done, if any of you are familiar with Christiana, who used to be one of our planners, as well as Kimberly Jones used to be one of our planners. They did actually an hours study based on how much time it takes our staff to administer the variance, process it, review it, go visit them on the site, all those types of things. And so that's what set the original $350 based on that study. $600 obviously also has to then accompany a staff report that we put together. It accompanies Plan Commissioner's time, especially if that's the only thing on the agenda for that night. We obviously pay those Plan Commissioners to be able to attend those meetings. So that's why that got increased to $600, because there's a fair amount of work.
I see. So it not an arbitrary drop, it's based off of hours that you guys figured out. Okay.
One of the things that we try and be conscious of, especially with the variance, because that's a specific homeowner requesting a specific thing, is we want to make sure that we try and cover our costs with that so that the entire city isn't burdened because one person wants to make an exception to it.
Do you feel that, we do a lot of facade grants, and that's good, and we've got some on the docket tonight to talk about. We don't really do it for homeowners, though. If, talking out loud here, if, right now the $350 covers the hours and the cost, and that's good, is, considering dropping these things down to $100, kind of a small facade grant to a homeowner. I mean, obviously, they're not going to know it's going to be $100 to them, but, ultimately, does it make some of these projects more palatable? I'm sure in the past, people have come in, $600? Yeah, so I'll live with what I got, right? So is dropping it to $100, say, our, small way of us doing kind of micro grants to people by helping?
My preference on that type of an approach, because I've been giving that exact item a lot of thought as to how we start to incentivize improvements in the downtown area, just to, again, those people that have chopped up homes, or they've totally maligned a arts and crafts style house, or it's just gotten buried in, asphalt siding or something like that. Can we do some level of residential facade grant program to incentivize those homeowners to do improvements to improve the quality of the architecture that's downtown? So that's a topic that I'll probably be bringing back in September, October, somewhere in there. But something like that could also be a part of that, as a way to incentivize small, really small improvements if they wanted to do it that way. A lot of the things that we get that trigger these variances in particular aren't things that I would really want to subsidize in some fashion. I would rather subsidize something that makes visual quality improvements to the downtown, i.e. a facade grant that makes a visual quality improvement to our Main Street or State Street. I would want to try and incentivize those to occur on a lot of our residential properties.
All right, that's reasonable. All right, any other questions, thoughts? We good with the consent then? Okay, thanks again, Lance.
Thank you.
All right, you staying up there for 917?
That's why I'm just staying up here. So 917 State Street, stepping back one notch a little bit. This is the first round of opportunity that we've had to work with the new grant program that we all reviewed and you all approved back in April or March. This is kind of the first opportunity that we've had to really investigate how it's working and whether or not we're making a dent in things. Just as a reminder, the new program that we put in place changed the funding levels. So every applicant now has the opportunity to have $20,000 per primary facade that's easily visible from the public street. So again, visibility, we want to create the visible improvement. We don't really have too much concern about, outside of the use, what's going on inside, but we want to make sure that our public face is really good. And then $10,000 for general site improvements. And then there is an opportunity, depending on the project or other things, that either Ben or myself can authorize with your approval an amount that goes above that maximum $50,000 per property. We've talked a fair amount about, bids and other things that go in with that. We do have a unique situation tonight. Joe has done a fair amount of work, obviously everybody knows, in town, but he is a unique case, a unique condition, because he is a general contractor and self-performs a significant amount of all the projects that he does. In those cases in the past, we've had him grab, bids and really, put hard numbers in, and so you've seen cost estimates in your packets, and there is one in your red folder tonight for the 917 project. I did notice that wasn't included in your packet, so you can see where that is. But one of the challenges that Joe even runs in is it's difficult for him to get people to bid against him, because no contractor is willing to bid against a contractor who's also the owner. And so it becomes very difficult to get bids that people are willing to offer, because typically the owner or the contractor will underbid it because he wants to do the work. And oftentimes he can be lower because he's not paying the profit overhead and a number of the other things that go with typical contractor markups that come with any project. The other thing that we look at as a part of this process is the total dollar value of the project. So in Joe's cases tonight, one of his projects, the 917 project, when you strip out a couple of the things that aren't eligible, the total project cost is still $125,000 plus or minus. And if the maximum award is $50,000, his total project is still over what it would be if it was even $100,000. On his other project, the total cost is $315,000. Yeah, $315, that would be interesting. $315,000 once you strip out some of the non-eligible costs. And so it's, again, way exceeds what the 50% match is. And so I know that that is a little bit challenging because there are requirements in here for 3 bids or 2 if you can't get multiple bidders on here. And again, it's a slightly unique situation because the applicant is a general contractor that self-performs much of the work that he's doing. So, going into kind of these presentations tonight, I just want to make sure that we note that. The other thing that is also important to note is for 2020, so far this year, we have spent a grand total of $2,360 out of our $195,000 that's budgeted for the facade and the fire improvement grant program. So it's all of 3% of our total budget for this year. I have been pretty much begging all of our building owners downtown, please apply, please apply, please apply. We have these funds that are allocated. We want to spend them because they do so much great things for our downtown. Someone mentioned to me the other day about the work that was on Embers and how many of the employees came from Lockport that were working on the building. These are opportunities to put people in the community to work and get them to invest in the downtown. And it also increases our EAV in the downtown, which helps our TIF value. And in a case like the North Archer property, it starts to really set a trend for that area too. So I've been begging everybody to submit their stuff as fast as humanly possible because we need to also expend those funds yet in 2020. So we want these projects to start as early as possible so we can get them completed yet this year. So again, only 3% of our total budget. I'd really like to spend $195,000 because that's what we've got budgeted and it's coming out of the gaming funds anyway, so which is what it was allocated for. So those are the 2 kind of big picture things that I wanted to make sure that we had a handle on. Yes.
Can I just ask, so what has been the response from the business owners, to fix up their facade on the exterior?
So we've had some that are focused on the interior of their properties, and so they're not really focused on the outside of their property yet. We've had some that have done some plans but never really want to pull the trigger because they're not willing to, they don't want to invest the $25,000 even to get $25,000, something like that. We've had some like Joe who is like, look, I'm ready to go, I've got the funds, we've got the drawings ready to go, I am set and ready to build. And once, I think Joe would probably say, I think I've asked him like 12 times to say, please get it in as soon as possible so that we can get something moving yet this year. And so, he's been able to do that because he's had an architect ready to go, he's got the drawings ready to go and submitted the grant application. It's been really difficult to get a broad base of our business owners, no matter how many times I beg, scream, ask, to just simply submit the application and the drawings and we can provide you funding.
I think Lance and I both do a lot of advocating when we're in the downtown, I was at the car show, talking to business owners. A lot of times they're tenants, and so they're not the building owners, and I tell them, hey, tell your landlord, if you want to paint, you want to do windows, you want to do some awnings, the city has this program. And many of them are surprised by it, they don't realize it, and so we need to try to do some more marketing, or maybe we should create a flyer and drop them off at all the businesses downtown or something, but, for next year. But I'm always amazed that we haven't spent the money over the years, and I think Darren has advocated with staff over the years to make it more accessible, and I think this program is now more easily done. We don't put the liens on them anymore, and so some of the people were reluctant to do that in the past. So there's been a couple different reasons, I think, over time, and Actually, I'm surprised we haven't spent that much more this year because we have had a lot of conversations, but Joe's has really been the first one that says, hey, I qualify because I own these 5 buildings, and so we know he's going to be applying for several over the years. And good for him. The money's there, and he's investing in our town, and we want to invest back in him, and it's a good program that works. And I think we just need to try to spread the word a little bit more to get more variety of what people are using it for.
And honestly, you know, real broadly, as I've talked to business owners that are looking to come into downtown, even town, just in general town, you know, a lot of them don't know about downtown Lockport. And I'll send them a whole bunch of pictures, and I'll just say, these are some open spaces. Come on down, I'll walk you around, I'll drive you around, I'll meet you, or just drive through yourself. And the feedback that I get is, oh my gosh, I never knew that, you know, the buildings were as intact and as in good shape as they are. They look great, the downtown looks great. A lot of people comment on the streetscape and the improvements that have been done there. And so they're really surprised, and you know, it's just one more thing with this facade grant program. I know it kind of seems boring and mundane, but it is a huge change maker for our downtown, for the relative investment that we have in those improvements. I'm sure Darren has the EAV numbers of some sort, but you know, the values of our downtown buildings and even the residential areas that have gone on around it have really just risen. And it's a really, really good investment that has a significant return in jobs, local jobs, has a return in EAV, it has a return in sales tax, it has a return in so many different things.
Maybe that's what we need to actually advertise when you do approach or send out some kind of literature, indicate that it does help and improve, you know, not only the building, but also in value. So that way, maybe that might generate them, you know, to be interested enough to invest in their own building. You know, I just don't get it that, you know, they can have free money, basically, you know.
So just to kind of go ahead and piggyback on what he said about the TIF and what he also said about EAVs, you know, the Embers building is the perfect example, okay? If y'all paid attention a few years ago, we did a crazy thing. The city of Lockport, bought a building, sold it for $10, and got $1.5 million or so in value. At the time, the total property tax was $5,000. Okay? This year, the TIF portion, which goes to the city of Lockport, and then we go ahead and we get 72% of that. But it was $38,000. So a facade grant, we get back in 1 year what we actually paid out in a grant. So it's a good deal. So you compound that over the next 100 years, we get far more back from the small investment of, you know, it's literally half pennies on the dollar when it comes to what we're going to get in return.
Any other questions before I launch into the actual case?
I just want to quickly say then, so since you have brought up that notifying the businesses, is it possible to have Brittany then send out a letter to ask you guys to take this responsibility, then have Brittany send out a letter to every existing business owner who owns the building, let them know that the program exists, because I would say that I feel that there are probably a lot of business owners who do not know about it, and the small improvements, when they do paint it, change the door, change the windows, they add tremendous front value to the town. And then you'll be able to get a better understanding of, you know, have we really marketed to all those businesses that qualify? And explaining the process and maybe even sending a sample of what the process looks like with your card then to follow up.
Yeah, of course.
And maybe we can get that done in the next month. Now, are these grants still within the 1 year? You have to start it and complete it within the year?
You need to, well,
Because the budget is within the year?
we pay back within the 2020. So for this year, anybody that applies, let's just say in February, and finishes before December 31st, we're able to pay them back. So really, anytime, anywhere you start, as long as you finish in December 31st, it applies to 2020's budget. That's something that we are always trying to pay attention, and why I'm asking so many of the business and property owners in like July and June to get started on these things, because I want them to be able to finish before the end of the year. Because I tell all of them, I said, I can't guarantee what the funding is going to be next year. And I can't guarantee whether or not 5 people are going to apply on January 3rd and suck up a bunch of the money. So then you're fighting time.
Well, we also don't have to spend it this year. It could be rolled over to next year if we allocate it for that. So we could keep that in mind too. Lisa, since we said this was coming out of the gaming fund, do we have a total amount of how much we have left in the gaming fund? I know I'm putting you on the spot there, but.
I think I've done some projections already for this year, and based on what we've already spent or allocated and approved through council to spend, there's about 650,000 left.
Okay.
Through the end of this year.
And that's without spending the money, or with the
With
one,
that's
with
With
spending the
spending it.
195?
It's
It was
included spending.
900,000 at the beginning of
Okay.
the year this year, and then we have some, we did some engineering for the parking lot, we did some other,
Okay.
so there's some things we code against
Because
it.
I know the
but-
money is not coming in like it was the previous year.
Right, well, we're gonna get a report here soon, Darren's gonna probably let us know next Monday
Next
on
Monday, okay.
how the rolls are back on. We have lowered the amount of revenues that we're expecting for this year for that in our projections because of the closures, but we don't know, we usually get about 250 a year, we're gonna guess about 175 this year, but maybe we'll get lucky and it'll be over 200,000, but it's definitely gonna be lower than it was in previous years because it was closed for 5 months, so.
The good news, of course, is that unlike some cities, we did not allocate those funds for the general fund. So
Right.
the cities that have done that are in a bad spot right now.
Yeah, of course.
So it's good.
So on the actual project, the applicant is Joe, JGH Properties, with the building at 917 South State Street. It is the old People's Cleaners, if people would recognize it by that name. That's the building. There's the before on the left and what he is looking to do with it on the right. This is going to include marble installation, siding replacement, new lighting, windows, doors replacement, roofing on all the bump outs that you see on the graphic. It's in the downtown C4 district. Obviously, as many people know, in the years that followed since the business closed, it suffered a lot of deterioration over time. Joe's been in it now for, 8 months trying to clean it out, and it was a real mess on the inside. And so this is a great opportunity to help support really a reinvigoration of a building that sorely needs a reinvigoration. The design that's been done is actually very consistent with what was there historically. The facade that got basically plastered onto that structure can make this, so it sounds totally out of there, that what's on the right actually could come from the structure that's on the left, but that's what can work. So there's a lot of work to be done on this one, which is why the amount is a little bit higher than what you might expect for a building this size. So our recommendation is that the amount of $50,000 be allocated for the project. And I will take any questions.
All right, if everyone's good, we can do a consent with that?
I do have a question on this. So I do have a small problem with the way we get the bids here. And this will be directed at maybe a training issue for you or also the applicant reading it. When it says on our thing, like demolition is not included, ineligible improvements, it shouldn't come on my paperwork, demolition. So that's what I'm referring to. I have a problem with, let's follow the rules. If we've created rules and you want this many bids, 2 bids or 3 bids, and then you're trying to say, okay, well, you can't get a bid for yourself if you're the contractor, but we still can follow the rules. I mean, ineligible improvements, the first thing says demolition and new construction. The second line item is demolition, $11,500. So that's where I have a problem with, if we're gonna be strict in following rules, and you're bending the rules here and asking for that, then even when I'm looking at the bid, it's not following the rules. So I have a
Yes.
problem with that.
Right, so when we accept the project bids, Teresa in our office goes through all those line items. The actual cost with the items removed that aren't qualify is $124,140.
But that's what we should get in our packet. is what's actually being covered and approved. I mean, I shouldn't have to read through here and do the math.
Sure.
And
Okay.
so I do have a problem with that. And so if we can be more clear on that, so I shouldn't have to go line by line, because I don't really care what the total amount is on the project. I'm looking at, here's what the facade is for, here's what we're approving, and I'm in charge of following the rules. And so that would be my reasoning for wanting to see an update of that.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think if you'd like, just as a part of this package, as a part of the record, we can certainly have the applicant adjust the bid to reflect what was applicable into there. We just have an internal mechanism, but I understand the comment, and we can make that change, for
All
sure.
right, thank you.
All right, so if we adjust that,
Make it an action item then?
that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
So that'll just adjust, and I can walk you through what it is.
All right, what do you got next? You got 846?
Yep. Next one is 846 to 892 North State Street. I typically call this the Villanova Pizza Building or the L Building. It's the one at the corner, southeast corner of Mary Knoll and North State Street. It's a mixed-use building. It was constructed way before 2003. It's a 23,000 square foot building. Currently has tenants of Villanova, Corner Salon, Ligas Building Materials, Tom Peters Guitar School. Those are all on the first floor. The applicant has purchased the building and has actually demolitioned a lot of the offices that were on the second floor. The plan for him is to put apartments up there, so redoing the entire second floor. His request is for a facade grant in the amount of $60,000 to redo the facade. And here's imagery of what the before and the after will look like. The image on the upper left-hand side is the existing, what would be the east facade when you're looking kind of at the L. The image on the right is the existing north facade of that building, and the image below is the proposal for that north facade in there. So you can see the major changes are putting a lot of different improvements on the facade itself with some more additional details that are creating a little bit more historically accurate components, as well as adding balconies for all the apartments on the second floor too. So let's see. What other items? So like I said, when we were talking about the overall general piece of this, the maximum obviously through the program is $50,000. This request is for $60,000. We do have in the program that either the city administrator or myself can make a recommendation to you to go above and beyond that $50,000 requirement. Given the size of the improvement, and Alderwoman Peretta, to your point, the total cost for this one, sans those items that don't fit, is $310,680. We'll certainly have that updated as well. So it is far beyond the typical match for a 50-50 of what the improvements would typically be granted for. We believe that this project is really the catalyst for improvements that could occur to the Dynamic Signals building, the plaza where Hollingworth Chocolates is located at, the plaza where Lupine Montessori is at. There have been some small improvements in where the dance studio is now located directly north of there. But we think that this is really an opportunity to catalyze this entire commercial area. And as a part of the Archer Avenue Route 171 study, that is talking a lot about this commercial area really being a hub for a slightly higher density area directly around it from residents to help support that commercial entity in that location. So both having the apartments on the second floor, which isn't really subject to this grant application, but also having a completely redone facade for a building that was built, I think, in the 70s, based on the aerial photos that we went back through and looked at, is just such a significant upgrade. We wholeheartedly recommend a slightly larger amount. It's not the full amount that he was requesting, but it is a slightly larger amount beyond the $50,000.
I had a question about the balconies. Are they functional? Because it just looks like there's only windows. Is there doors to access the balconies? All right. So just not reflective in that picture, per se? Okay. Will there be substantial changes then? I mean, if there's a door as opposed to a window, are there any other differences that we'd see? Okay.
I do have a question on this application too, under section 1 of cost sharing. It's like page 5 of 15. It says 50,000 times 2 for construction cost. So I don't know if that was an error in my packet, or if you were originally trying to change that amount.
That was his original request, and what we're recommending is significantly less than that.
Right, but again, that would be me when I'm reviewing a packet for something like this, of giving away money, basically is what it is, that I would think everything should be correct, because you could go back and say, okay, well, this says 100,000 was approved.
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly make every applicant go back onto their application and fill out a whole new application with whatever we've decided on. That could certainly be a part of our process. We hadn't done that for this one because our recommendation was different than what they applied for. And so the final paperwork will only have what the council authorizes.
If I could add, anything that's on an application is not necessarily what the official act is by the city council. They may put 200,000 or 500,000 on the application, but what is actually deemed and approved would be by the official vote of the city council, and it would reflect that on the resolution that is approved.
I'm just saying, when I'm reading this is what I'm seeing.
Sure.
Yeah, so I understand what you're saying, Sonny. I'm just saying, it's a little misleading when you go through it then.
Page 2 of their recommendation, it says that staff recommends $60,000. It's there.
However, the attachments are different.
Well, that's fine. There's a lot of information there. We do appreciate that you go through it, Catherine, and are thorough, so that's good. But it sounds like it's overall that's the right numbers of what they're asking.
We've had these since Friday. Has anyone come to you from the council asking questions about the math?
No. It's okay to talk at council. That's what council's for. Are there any other further questions? Otherwise, we could put it on as a consent or an action.
I would prefer to stay at 50,000.
That's something I think that can be reflected for the application to make it cleaned up. Am I misunderstanding what the request is?
I think.
No, I think she's asking the lower
Yeah, I
amount.
think
Yeah, so
the
then I would just say an
request
action
is-
item then.
Yeah,
We'll
it's
put it on.
60,000, so it would be an action item.
Okay. Action item it is. Thank you.
Not reducing the amount.
That was a request, but doesn't mean that the rest of the council has to accept that. We can vote on it at, right now, it currently sits at, we're voting on it at 60,000. Correct. Okay.
All right, I'm going to hand this one off to Ben.
Thanks, Lance. The next item, CA1, is another facade grant application. This is for 829 and 831 South State, and one of the reasons I took it is that this actually started probably about 3 years ago. Some of you may not know the full story, but we had some windows installed at the northwest corner of 9th and State, above the Cornolo Travel, on both sides of State and 9th. There wasn't a permit. H&A had realized it after the fact and had dealt with the building. I, myself, and prior staff got involved to discuss with the owner in regards to changing those windows out to be more historically accurate and appropriate. They didn't have an H&A approval for what they had did either. And then this, of course, is in our historic downtown. The prior owner actually agreed to change the windows out, and unfortunately, he passed away. His son took over the estate. We lost a lot of time. We lost a year. They were engaging in regards to doing it again, and we had the streetscape program going on, and we couldn't put up scaffolding, and so this has been delayed for multiple years, I guess is all I really wanted to kind of mention. But we're here now. The owner is willing to proceed with a grant application to replace the windows. He has received H&A approval for more historically accurate windows. He received quite a few bids. We looked at those. One of the things he was asking for, and like Lance had mentioned in our grant program, is that they can ask for more, right? And so the typical grant, he's asking for a little more percentage-wise in regards to what he can qualify. He's still under 50,000, but the ratio is a little different. So there is a little funny math in there if you read through your full packet to understand it. But bottom line is, he's eligible to take advantage of these funds. I think it's something to be historically accurate in the downtown. I know H&A has been talking about this for a couple of years. The city could have took a position of fining him and trying to get compliance going, but we didn't feel like that was the right path, especially with the death in the family. So we just felt like we continued to give them more time and work with them. And so before you tonight is an application for windows replacement with an additional ask for a bigger ratio of funding to help cover the windows. And the city's portion would be $36,000, and the full cost is $49,263, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Now, a facade like this, because it's two streets, is eligible for 20 a side, so.
Correct, yeah, I mean, the way he filled the application out, and we had talked to him prior before we changed it, it's a little confusing there, but technically.
So technically, it's less than he's allowed, but it's.
The full building, yeah, because he also talked about getting an application to fix the front. He does want to do another facade grant at some point in the future, but he didn't want to muddy the waters between the window issue and the building issue, and so he applied it this way, which, we reviewed and went through it, and it's fine. Like I said, it does meet our guidelines, and certainly with the ability for council to consent to it, so, and we have the funding available.
Okay. Well, let me just say a few things on it, because, yes, I've been aware and involved in this now for the last few years. When it seems like, well, it's been 3 years, who cares now, right? But the fact is, it was something that was, going to be taken care of, at the time, but like Ben said, through a number of factors, through death, through street construction, it's just kind of dragged out. But, but the bottom line is with it, is, we have an H&A committee, and it was established to make sure that we meet standards so that we can maintain something very special that we have here, is that we are a nationally registered historic district. It's very rare, but it's special. It was signed into law by Ronald Reagan, which I think it was actually the first nationally registered historic downtown. So it's something that we're very proud of. It's why we have City of Historic Pride on our water tower, and the H&A committee is kind of like us, right? Except they even get paid less than you. So, but they meet monthly, and they review these projects, and it's an important part of our process to maintain our historical integrity. And then also, it's also important to note that as new developers come in, we do ask them to meet requirements, for historic value. And the thing is that I think it's oftentimes people find surprising when they go before the H&A, it's not really oppressive. It's not like, oh my gosh, these guys are going to make me ask for window frames built out of recovered wood from the HMS Bounty. It's not like that. Actually, you find sometimes it's cheaper, their recommendations. It's not all about, specific materials. Sometimes there's modern materials that are recommended, but going through the process ensures that we don't have, the mistakes that we see here. And so, I know that the H&A committee, who's put a lot of time and effort into this, this is, it's something that has been, they felt strong about as well. And I'd hate to, have new developers that, we ask to meet certain standards, but tell them, what, if you do it wrong and it goes by for a few years, don't have to worry about it anymore. It's like, it's stuff that I think is important that we do take care of it. And of course, the building owner, Mr. Thompson Sr., when he did it, he was always a downtown supporter, by the way. He did a lot of work in Joliet as well when he realized that the windows were not the right windows. Wasn't excited, but he was willing to fix it because, he had a mindset to do so. So I think from my perspective, it's important to support this. We have the funds to do it. It helps keep the integrity of our National Historic District. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Well, I have a contrary opinion here. Yes, I've also put in a lot of time on this too. So what we have here is we have windows, due to mistakes that may or may not have been made by city staff, none of whom are currently employed by us, they put in some windows. And had I not received a complaint a year or two after that they put these windows in from a member of the H&A committee, then neither I nor anybody else in town would have known that these windows were not historically accurate. So, so I just think we have a decision to make. Are we going to go ahead and accept? And one of the options we have here is to accept what is currently there, and I think they look nice. There have been issues with, well, they're not the right size. There wasn't any change in the opening, okay, of the windows. And no, Joe, you can't do this. Okay. Okay, but I think we should just exempt this building. We can use that $36,000 for another facade grant for somebody else, okay? So that's my recommendation. So if we are to vote on what we currently have, then yes, I would, as presented, I would recommend an action item.
Yeah, certainly an action item, because I know there's two different mindsets on it.
And I kind of have to agree with Darren there. If it's been there for 3 years and it doesn't look too bad, I mean, I don't see why we should spend good money, good city money, on replacing windows.
I forgot.
Sure.
I did provide some pictures just so we can see what we're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. And I'd rather see that 36,000, if you're saying he wants to reapply and do more to the building, let's put it toward that.
Well, I would say two things. One, the windows are different, because they did put some strips in to make them smaller, so that's inaccurate. They didn't change the stone size, but they did do some, filler in to put some standard windows in instead of making windows that actually fit properly. So that is something that happened. Part of the reason that they have this, the problem with these kind of windows is when they're all vinyl, the way they're structured, the glass becomes very, very small, and you have these very wide borders. It's part of the problem with it. And again, it goes back to, if we're going to undermine H&A, what's the point in having them come in and spend their time? They're here to maintain the historic integrity of our downtown. It's why we have the moniker. Our moniker's not, hey, if it's been there for a few years and nobody said anything, let's change it, right? It's a little wordy up there on the water tower, but if that's where we want to go, that would be something to do. So, and we'll vote on this next week. We can make our cases again then, but action item.
I'm also going to add to this, though. I was at that H&A meeting where this was voted on. It was not unanimous. I believe it was 3-2. 3 guys are in favor of pursuing having them changed out, and 2 are not. So this is not, that was not a unanimous decision on the H&A committee. Am I accurate on that vote? I believe you were there as well. Also, the big concern that came out is they said, well, why do we have vinyl windows in this building as well? So, and nobody's stopping the city hall from removing them. Yeah. So that is the other topic that is brought up with these windows. So I know we're going to have an action item, but I just wanted to throw those 2 things out.
Sure. No, there's a number of things that have happened over the years. There's no doubt. But this is one that was actually addressed quickly, within the month after it happened. The only reason it's been 3 years, though, is because of the problems that Ben pointed out. So otherwise, it would have been dealt with at the time.
Can I ask this question? Is it possible to put anything in writing that in 30 years or 20 years, when these windows get replaced, they have to go back to historic?
Well, we
Is there anything we can do
certainly
that
hope
with?
that
No?
the building owner knows they need a permit now, and they will have to go through an H&A review. So if this item goes to action, and if it fails, those windows will fail at some point in the future, right?
Right.
8, 10, 15 years, whatever it is. When
they
they go to pull it again, they would be required by H&A, for appropriateness, and put the right windows in then. Yeah,
Unless
I would
you
hope
do
that.
it on the weekend
Unless we
when
do
no
it.
one's watching.
Yeah, right. Right, so, like I said, the building owner's willing to do it. You know, I think, you know, there's a process and a procedure there that, yes, it wasn't well-oiled over time, but I think we're to the right suggestion now, and we're recommending approval. We have the funding available, and again, the building owner's willing to do it, so.
All right, crew. What's next? We've got the semi-annual review of closed session meeting minutes.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm not going to belabor this item. It's our semi-annual review of closed session meeting minutes. They've been reviewed by me. I determined there are some session meeting minutes, and they have to deal with the Sloan pad that the city ultimately purchased, acquired through the demolition of that property, and so there's no need to keep them in closed session. So I would request that this item be set for consent agenda for next city council meetings. And again, these meeting minutes are available in my office. If anyone wants to review them, just let me know, and I will be more than happy to sit with you in my office while you read them.
All right, everybody good with that? Consent? Okay. All right, next we've got the water well solutions to repair well number 14.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Do have one item on the agenda this evening. Feels a little weird sitting here. I've got my mask on and off, and so give me just a minute here. But all right. So well number 14, in February of this year, we unfortunately had an issue with well 14. It's only been back in service for about 2.5, 3 years. Unfortunately, we were having some issues operationally. We pulled the well. It was an emergency pull, which means it was non-operational, it was not functional. And we were able to get, over about a month's period of time, you can see we pulled it in February, and then in March we did get a quote from Water Well Solutions. That quote was for about $94,000. We went ahead with the work at that point because, again, it was an emergency repair. Just about 2 weeks ago, we put the well back into service, and thankfully there was no additional work needed. So what we wanted to do was make sure that we had everything covered, had everything back in service before we came to council. What this well number 14, this $94,934, does take the place of our annual well pull, which we had budgeted. So we did have $100,000 in maintenance budgeted for a well pull this year. Unfortunately, we're not able to pull another well, but fortunately, we did have this money budgeted. So this evening, a little bit backwards from what we would normally do, but we would ask the council concur with the work that's been done, the emergency pull and the emergency repairing of the well. Again, this is well number 14 in the amount of $94,934. Take any questions at this time?
Yeah, Brent, I understand that we had to fix this, and that's good, and took care of it. I appreciate it. It's the short time that it's been updated, and the failure that is the one concern I have. Is like, was it a quality of work issue? Was it something that's just unforeseen? I don't want to find this. It's like buying a new hot water heater that fails every 2 years, right? It's like, well, what's the problem?
Sure, and I'm right with you. When I heard that it was well 14, and then when I heard that it was the sizable bill that it is here, it wasn't just a quick repair something, a bolt failed. It was major failure. What we did find, and we knew at the time, was there was some different materials. There was some additional sand in the ground. There's basically what we've done now is we've put a few more things into place down the hole to strengthen the well. So can I tell you why initially it was not designed that way? No, I don't know why. I think that when they would have found that out, again, a few years ago, it would have been something that we could have done. However, I'm sure that they were hoping, crossing their fingers, that it was not going to fail, at least fail this soon. So what I can tell you is we did take the extra effort and the extra steps this time. We have Water Well Solutions is a good company, and they do, stand by their work. Can I guarantee that it's not going to fail tomorrow? No, I can't guarantee that on any well. However, we did take the additional steps to make sure that we have done a little bit more, for the long-term overhaul of this well.
And our concerns about who did the original work and who designed it, possibly, if that were the issue, this is something we can, want to make sure we're keeping an eye on.
It is. And I think that it's a good question. I think that in general, all of our contractors, all of our engineers, it is good to keep them in check. And I'll be the first one to tell you that I think that people sometimes they do good work. However, they do it sometimes quickly, as inexpensively as possible. There was nothing that I could point to that said they did anything wrong or in error. I think that it's just a matter of, our contractors, I can guarantee you that our contractors are hearing this from us. We care about the quality of the work. So 2nd to 5th, for instance, they're hearing us on a daily basis. It's not about how fast you can get it done, it's about the quality. And it's very similar to this type, and I know council may or may not want me to say this to them, but I do tell them every once in a while that I would rather pay just a little bit more for a quality product. And we have been really pushing that. Our treatment plant that we're talking about moving forward with, some headworks, it's the same type of operation there. It's not always about taking that low bid. It's not always about taking the person who's going to get out there, do it quickly, and get off the site. We want to find people that we can rely on, that we can trust. So I will tell you from an engineering standpoint, from a city standpoint, we have asked and we will continue to ask questions and make sure that we have what we need for the long haul.
Okay.
So,
I just have a quick question. This happened in February.
That's correct.
How long did it take to get it repaired then? What are my timeframes, and do I ever have a problem with capacity then? Water, being available?
Sure. It went back into service about 2 weeks ago. So it was out of service from late March, last week of March, until, like I said, just about 2 weeks ago. And one of my concerns is always, the ability to produce, pump, and make sure that we have enough for our citizens. If we would have had another well go out, it could have been an issue. But right now, what we have is we basically have that redundant well. This was our redundant well, so to speak. So you always, EPA requires that redundant well. Thankfully, it hasn't been too hot. I know earlier in the year it was hot, but we've had some milder weather the last couple weeks. But we were able to keep up. We were able to keep capacity. We obviously knew this was going down, so we made sure that our tanks, all of our storage was at full capacity. And like I said, knock on wood, we did not have any other instances where anything else was down during this period.
Okay.
The other thing that I will mention, I apologize, real quick, to the redundancy that we've been able to provide. Gallagher Road, I cannot stress how important that was. I think that council, I think it was a great opportunity for the city to basically connect, and I know you've heard us talk about this a lot, but $2.5 million project that connected our north and our south. So what that did was that basically looped the entire city, especially that in conjunction with our State Street improvements that we did. We went from 4-inch main, where we couldn't fight a fire downtown. We've got 8 and 12-inch main. We basically have the city now, we have a big loop around the entire city. So even if we have down at the south end where 1 or 2 wells were to go out, we still have that capacity to immediately pick up flow from the north end, take it to the south. So that kind of helped us out as well. Yeah.
All right, any other questions? We good with the consent? Yes. All right.
Thank you.
All right, anybody got any new business?
I just have one short thing, very short. As y'all may have read in the last couple of weeks, that there's some things going on with Homer Glen and Homer Township in regards to the road district out there. I brought some issues to staff and the mayor. about what I believe Homer Glen can and cannot do. And so we have contacted the various, both Homer Glen and Homer Township Highway Department. Go ahead and discuss our issues that we have with this. Basically, it's the issues is those who live in the Homer Township portion of the city of Lockport have helped subsidize equipment and roads in Homer Glen, and I believe that we need to protect those who have invested in the Homer Township Highway Department for however long you have lived in your house in Homer Glen. So my understanding is Ben's trying to put together a meeting sometime next week that we can get these issues, significant issues for those who have invested in the Homer Township Highway Department for as long as they lived in their homes. So.
Yeah, and these are meetings that staff and I have been having now for quite some time, and we've been pushing, you know, the Homer Township Highway Department over these inequities. Mark Lobes, you know, Alderman, has been with me, you know, through these discussions. We've been getting citizens involved, doing FOIAs to, you know, just kind of draw the attention about this inequity. So I think part of why you're seeing what you're seeing right now is because of pressure that we've been putting on them now for the last couple of years. So now that, you know, Homer Glen is working towards doing the right thing, which is taking care of their own roads, and, you know, looking at doing their own levy to do so instead of having an extraordinarily high township assessment that comes from our citizens to fix Homer Glen roads. I think it's definitely because of pressure, and I think, you know, my feeling on it is the Highway Township Board and the mayor have both understood it's been problematic, and so they are trying to address it now. Our job, of course, is, like has been said here, we want to make sure that our citizens are made whole from that inequity. That'll be part of this process, and yes, we will be part of that discussion. So.
Well, we appreciate staying on it because we are one of the highest tax rates.
Yeah,
is
for
Homer
townships,
Township, so, I'm sorry, Homer Township, yeah.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you, Darren. Yes, Terry.
Alderwoman Bergbauer had asked a question about the warranty on the cameras for our camera system. So I texted Commander Rizzi, who got a hold of the vendor, and the vendor got a hold of Panasonic, and they agreed to extend the warranty to 5 years. Simply by asking. I never thought that would happen. I never thought it extended a day. So thank you.
I've never been able to get something done that
If you
fast.
don't ask, I guess
That's
you
amazing.
don't receive.
Christina making it happen.
Right? Also in the downtown, I guess we had the car show on Monday night. It was a pretty good success. We had like 58 cars in the downtown. We're going to expect more next week on Monday night from 4 to 8 p.m. We've got a DJ. We've got, hopefully we'll have the farmer's market out this coming week. And it was nice to see people in the downtown. And I know the restaurants and store owners appreciated it, you know, where they get a kind of pop-in business when they're not usually busy. And it felt good to see many of you out there as well, and staff and council, and it felt good to be in the
Give us the times
community.
again of the car show as well as the farmer's market?
Yeah, they're basically Monday. It starts around 4.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
We play
4 to
music
about
till
8.
8.
The same time that the car show is happening? Okay.
Yeah, so what the chamber did, you know, they had asked to move it down to State Street. I think it worked out great. It helped really support the businesses. If you were there, you saw. I mean, I had even the Reclaimed Wood guy who's never open. It's like, I actually opened up. It has more foot traffic than I ever had. So instead of just doing appointments only. So they did a good job on that. As far as the farmer's market goes, they've been trying to assemble some vendors. And that will take time to build. So you may see a few in the beginning, but it will happen at the same time, probably over on 10th Street. And that will grow over time. So that's, you know,
It's good.
have, the right expectations for how that plays out. But, I know that when I talked to the organizers of the car show themselves, the guys who've been doing this for years, they told me, man, we've been trying to be on State Street for years. So they were very excited about being down there. And I thank you to the police and the auxiliary. You guys were able to close those 2 lanes down, keep it safe. I know sometimes people are like, close the whole street. But you can, it's a state route. But what you guys did to slow traffic and make it safe, I think you did a great job. So thank you very much for that. And, yeah.
Public
good-
Works
good
did a nice
to
job
the
cleaning
chamber.
up, too, yeah, yeah.
All right, my friends, nothing else? All right, well, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second?
Joanne, seconded by Catherine, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, why don't we take 5, let Kathy get her stuff together for city council.
Thank you.
All righty, I'm going to start our city council meeting. Kathy, can I get a roll call, please?
You got it. Saban. Schreiber. Bergbauer. Galogly.
Here.
Deskin.
Here.
Lobes.
Here.
Bartleson.
Here.
Beretta.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, so we're looking for a motion to have a consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
Man, everybody jumped in. I'll say Joanne and seconded by JR because he was loudest. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so tonight's consent is Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from July 15th, regular City Council meeting minutes from July 15th, our payroll period ending July 26th, a proposed license agreement with Second City Greens for the former Sloan Pad. There's the professional services agreement with Tesca Associates for the zoning and comprehensive plan. And then there's a facade and site improvement grant for 921 State. So we're looking for a motion to approve. All right, Renee, seconded by Larry. Can I have a roll call, please?
Saban. Yes. Schreiber.
Yes.
Bergbauer.
Yes.
Galogly.
Yes.
Deskin.
Yes.
Lobes.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes.
Beretta.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, next looking for have a motion to approve our bills through July 24.
Second.
Renee and Larry, all in favor?
It's J.
Oh, yeah, was it JR? I'm sorry, man. Yeah, tune my hearing aid better, man. All right, so let's do a roll call then.
All right. Saban. Yes. Schreiber.
Yes.
Bergbauer.
Yes.
Galogly.
Yes.
Deskin.
Yes.
Lobes.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes.
Beretta.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, looking for a motion to approve Resolution 20090, which is an 20076 for V3 to supervise and oversee the construction of the Sloan Building Pad pedestrian improvement project. So looking for a motion to approve. All right, Renee, second by, it's all right, second by Mark. All right, lay it on us, Ben.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. Yes, this is a resolution to kind of amend a prior resolution. We had in late June, the staff came to council to approve a stabilization project at the Sloan Building. A lot of that kind of reflects the vision that you saw in the presentation of the Makers Park that Mayor and Lance went through earlier. When we brought this through, the idea kept evolving, and, we wanted to be able to get something done before the tenant was going to come in. But the more we looked at it and the more we discussed it, we got kind of creative, and Brent had help talking to current contractors that are working in there. Austin Tyler is willing to crush stone on site and use it at the Chevron. We're able to take advantage of the District 5 range over on the other side of 53 is willing to take debris and clean fill from the site. So it kind of got us thinking that we were able to get to something that's more functional long-term. It's obviously an additional cost. We're asking for another $130,000. So the original was the $225,000. The construction project was quoted at $345,000. We're asking for a little additional contingencies just in case we get any surprises. So the maximum amount we would go to would be $360,000. This is, and it's a considerable amount of money. We don't lose sight of that. The mayor kind of sat me down and we talked about how we started on this years ago when the demolition of the building needed to be addressed, and could we save it? Did we have to deal with it? We didn't quite have this vision at this time. We didn't have the funds in the TIF at that time, and we really needed to address the danger to public safety to get it down. So I do realize that we've spent about $300,000 bringing this building down, and now we're asking for over $300,000 to kind of build something back up. But it really does, the sequencing is going to work, I think, pretty well in regards to what we think the vision is going to be there. This allows us something that's more long-term. I can actually show you a little vision that Lance kind of drew up, kind of a pretty version from some of our designs. And it really allows us to take advantage of our bike path program that we're coming through, the existing parking that's there. There's going to be a platform that's still elevated to the south that could be used for another space later, but it allows us some spacing to have the Second City Greens grow. And uniquely, there's another slide on here. Nope, there's not another slide on there, sorry. Where, well, you saw it with the presentation earlier, that you can actually bring additional containers down there that could do leasing and things. So this is just a better plan than what we brought to you a few months ago. I'm glad we didn't quite embark, but we wanted to be able to come back and see if we could do it a little differently than we had prescribed. We're certainly welcome to your comments and questions and concerns. We had gone out to bid and awarded to Vixen. It really wasn't their fault that we changed our minds and designs, and we've done this in the past, and it's certainly under our purchasing policy where it's basically a change order with the existing winning contract. We didn't feel like we had time to go back out and try to rebid and find a new vendor. And again, in fairness with what they did, they're honoring those competitive pricing. So it's really the same work and same project that you approved earlier. It's just a change in scope and design a little bit going forward. We'd like to get your approval this evening and move forward and hopefully have this ready for you in October.
And then just to add to what Ben said, the initial thought down there, we had a lot of different ideas, and one of the ideas initially was to take this down to the ground and put a pad in. Unfortunately, when we looked at it initially, we were looking at estimates in the $550,000 to $600,000 range, and so we very quickly scrapped those. Just wasn't the right time. But as Ben mentioned, when we were down over the last couple of weeks, over the last month and a half, I guess, just looking and talking and looking and talking, decided to reach out to some local contractors. Took advantage of Austin Tyler being in town. And they have been gracious enough to let us take that over there. That is literally hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of savings that we're able to take advantage of right now. So it wasn't that we didn't think about it. It was just that at the time it was cost prohibitive. So.
Any other questions?
I just want to say I did ask Lisa how much this project was costing us total. So previously, to take down the building, we had taken out $386,000 out of capital. This, as you said, Ben, will be out of the TIF fund, up to the $360,000. So total so far, if we approve this, then will be $746,000 at this location. So I just want to give that information. I'm fine that you're using it out of TIF funds. I just wanted to say, if we're going to keep track of what this project is costing us, the demolition of a building or whatnot, whatever you want to describe it as, it's going to end up probably being $1 million project. So that's all I wanted to say.
Sure. And not knowing what it was going to be 3 years ago when it came down, we knew that we were going to have to spend more money to build it back up, so.
Yep, so, I've had my words with staff on that very issue, but I think ultimately with, maybe it'll work out for the best, right? We have it's cheaper now to take it down because of the factors that were mentioned. And I think this new kind of understanding of when Second City Greens came in and the possibility of using these other containers, having a level lot actually would be actually pretty cool and very flexible. And in the meantime, as it builds up, it's parking, so, which is always at a premium. So, that said, any other questions?
I have one more question. Can I get an update on the pump house? I don't want to do all this work next to that pump house when I don't know how long that's going to last, or can we get rid of it, or what can you tell me about the pump house?
Sure. We've actually studied that quite extensively because it is not an ideal location. It's been there forever. Essentially, it's a 30-foot ejector pit. Really, it's an ejector pit. Unfortunately, there are the two existing buildings that are down on the west side of the tracks, adjacent to 6th Street. Both buildings do flow into that. In order to upgrade the facility, we did, like I said, we've studied that, and we've got estimates of about $800,000 to put a lift station in that would be functional today, that would take future development. The part that we don't know is what that future development is. So when I say that $800,000 number, that's not to scare anybody. That's if Adaptive Pack, the building to the north, and then whatever ends up on this facility were to kind of max out. So if we were to get a couple restaurants or a brewery or something that's going to use quite a bit of capacity. So it's hard today to say we want to take that away. It functions, it operates. It's certainly not ideal, but without knowing kind of what we need down there, it's a really tough location. It's on the wrong side of the tracks. It's on the with the canal there. There's just a lot of problems and costly issues. Not to mention the bedrock down there is very shallow as well. So. Couple of things working against us, I think, long-term, once we decide or once we determine what this is going to be, then we can really zero in on it. That $800,000, again, I think that's going to be on our high end, though.
What is the building north of the Sloan Building? It's the two-story kind of walkout tin hut. What do they use for, where does their sewer and water go?
That flows down
That
to
one
this.
also, so it's the Sloan Building that's still up, and the other building.
That is correct.
And then there's the Gaylord Building, so the three of them.
The Gaylord Building does not go into there. The Gaylord Building actually is attached underneath. There's a railroad bridge.
Yeah.
It's actually underneath the culvert.
Yeah.
It is attached to the bridge, and it does not go into that lift station.
So, we've had this discussion about the smell, and that, I thought, so it has nothing to do with that.
I wish it did. It would be an easier fix, to be
Separate,
honest with you.
yeah.
That's one of the things. We're going to be there tomorrow, actually, 8:30.
Just to make, well, why are you doing a smoke test if it's not even connected? I don't even understand.
Gaylord Building, we're going to smoke test the Gaylord Building.
Yeah, we're gonna
Okay.
be in the facility.
All right.
And trying to determine if there's any connection that, old facility, just like here.
Yeah.
We find all kinds of, it might have been the easiest way to connect at some point. And it might just be a trap that's not filled with water. It might be a downspout. We're hoping to find that easy.
Okay, well, that's news to me. I actually thought that lift station was for the
No.
Gaylord. Okay.
It's a separate trap.
Yep.
The, our goal or our conversations we've had about the future potential, lift station needs there is hopefully it's going to be driven by development someday in the future. It could be a shared cost agreement in regards to a development agreement. We could use TIF funds in the future as they rebuild every year. So it is something that we're aware of and to be addressed, and we feel that even the current growth that's being suggested by the Makers Park can still be supported by the current lift station. Again, it's not ideal, but we did make some improvements to it when the building came down. We put the hut over it. It's stable. It's got a heater in there now, so power. So it's a good-sized Band-Aid. It's not the forever Band-Aid there. If we get some development, and like Brent said, I mean, if you really have a microbrewery come into that building to the north there, that would drive the need to make some improvements. And that's all going to be hopefully borne on the developer. If they're going to spend, $4 million fixing a building and doing everything, they'll be able to put, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 into doing the lift station. So hopefully.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Are we ready to go to vote? All right, let's take a roll call, please.
All right, Saban. Yes. Schreiber.
Yes.
Bergbauer.
Yes.
Galogly.
Yes.
Deskin.
Yes.
Lobes.
Yes.
Bartleson. Yes. Coretta.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All righty then. All right, the master pole attachment agreement with Verizon.
Yes, Mayor, members of the City Council, this item was discussed on the June 17th Committee of the Whole meeting. It was continued over from the last July meeting in regards to some of the questions that were presented at the June 17th meeting, including if the city was required to enter into this pole attachment agreement with Verizon, and under the act and our ordinance, the response is yes. It's either the City Council votes to approve this agreement, or Verizon has the option to apply for its application, and within 30 days, the city has to approve a master pole attachment agreement. In discussing with the Verizon representative, there's questions regarding how many of these attachments are we thinking of, or the small cells that Verizon was thinking of attaching. I think informally, Verizon representative has indicated somewhere around 12, of these attachments. The agreement has been revised since the last time it was presented to require that Verizon make a good faith effort to camouflage and conceal the facilities, the equipment, and cover the exposed cables. That's actually more than some of the requirements that we have for ComEd items that we have, utilities that we have on some of those poles. So they're required to conceal it as much as possible, make it consistent with the pole, and make sure that visually it doesn't stand out as feasible. So the recommendation is to approve this agreement. I know that there may be some objections. We are really against the wall on this. The push is for 5G. This is supposed to help increase the mobility and the access to the internet for a lot of our residents. And with that, I could respond to any questions that the members of the City Council has, but we are recommending that this agreement be approved.
All right, well, let's have a motion so that we can talk about it. So moved. Mark, seconded by Catherine. All right, just another quick recap, and then I had a couple questions. So, again, I know there's all this controversy about 5G, and which is fine. It happens, and whether or not what's true, what's not true, I don't know. I don't know what's true in the world anymore about anything half the time, right? It's just so cockamamie. But what I do know is that another big thing on the top of a telephone pole is just one more ugly utility. And that was why, last time I voted yes, but under duress, because basically the state said, you got to do it. So either you do it and like it, or you do it and suck it, right? So it was one or the other. We had a little bit of control if we said yes, right? About like, well, we can have some leeway here and there, but ultimately there wasn't a lot of choice thanks to state legislature decisions. So now, my questions are this, is if Verizon wants to come in and they estimate about 12 of these throughout the city, and we approve some sort of master plan for them. So basically what you're saying is before they put these 12 in, staff and Verizon are all agree on the locations ahead of time, and it's part of the discussion. If we say, so I have two questions. If we say no, then do they just come in and apply one at a time? Or, because I thought you mentioned that we still have to approve of some master one. So I don't know if it's one at a time or not. And then the second question is, what happens when AT&T comes, and then Sprint comes, and then, Joe Blows, who comes up with a new thing? So am I going to have basically 12 from each one of these guys? Ultimately, we have hundreds, depending on every company wants to do it. How does that work? So that's my second question.
I could answer the first part regarding the first application. The first application under the code and also the state statute, they could apply for 25 location in that first application. So it's, in essence, they will get what they want on the location, but we really wouldn't have the ability to say, you need to cover that cable, you need to landscape the ground equipment. So this is a way of us to say, hey, that location is going to be right in front of, Jimmy's bedroom, and that looks obnoxious. Could you move it 100 feet away? Then they will be able to do that. So in a way that gives us the leverage to negotiate and be able to tell them this is a better location.
So what's the advantage to Horizon? They're not going to come in here. I don't know any business who would come in and say, well, if I come into an agreement, I get, stifled, or I can just say, the hell with it and do whatever I want. Why would they come to an agreement with us at all? Then what benefit do they have?
I think they want the expectation and the consistency in knowing that they can locate in certain location, because I'm sure part of their business plan is that they know exactly what's going to be located. But as far as other utilities, other like AT&T, I believe that Brent has indicated that those companies, they don't have the same type of small cells, and we're not going to see a proliferation of these, small cells in all the light poles that the city owns.
That is correct. And today, and again, take it for what it's worth. This is coming, directly from Verizon, from AT&T, and then also from T-Mobile Sprint. There's 3 groups, and those 3 groups are the ones today, the companies today that would be interested in this type of 5G network. So they all have the microcells. The microcells, the micro towers, those are where they're getting 5 to 8 mile range, they said. So they're getting 5 to 8 miles. They have those in locations where they're able to talk. So everything is working fine. The 5G, when they need that boost, that 5G boost is not necessarily because they're talking mountain to mountain and down in the canyon, it's not getting that reception. It's because there's a school there and you've got 4,000 kids drawing on the data at one time. So there's just not enough strong enough signal. I'm probably not using maybe the exact terminology, but that is why they need to put a small cell. It's not because something's not reaching there. It's not because when you flip your phone on you get 0 bars. It's because everybody is drawing. So today, what Verizon has said is they don't know where those locations are at because they're going to continue to evolve. Just me thinking about this logically, I think you're going to have potentially, out by the hotel. When the hotel gets completely constructed, there's going to be a need there, especially if Marcus and FCA, that's going to be a draw. Today, it's not a draw. Tomorrow, it would be a draw. The high school, clearly that's a draw. Places like Walmart, there's a lot of people there. So that's kind of their business model and how they're going to locate these. As far as the difference in the companies, and again, I'm not an expert in this, but for whatever reason, AT&T has said that they do not have the same type of a system, and they do not require these micro cells. I don't know exactly why, but they said that they don't have that need. They don't anticipate any today. When we talk to them, they don't anticipate having any of these. Again, is that a for sure? Is that a certainty forever? No, but AT&T has come in and said they don't have that. The other thing that I found quite interesting is that in order for these to work, they have to run fiber. Fiber is extremely, extremely expensive to run. Fiber is expensive to run. We have to give them a permit to run fiber from point A to point B. So anywhere that Verizon wants to put one of these small cells, they've got to go from their macro, run underground fiber to that point. So it's not, they don't want to put these up if they don't have to. I can promise you that. That kind of that reassured me a little bit because fiber, like I said, is not cheap. If it gets hit, it's extremely expensive. It's not splicing is not something you can do. You're.
Is that why they bury it?
Yes, so it's a bury. So when you have to bury, obviously, then again, you're working with us on trying to go from point A to point B, which if that's a mile or two, you're in our right of way, you've got to deal with water main, you've got to deal with sanitary, storm, crossing roads, crossing other utilities, ComEd, NICOR. So kind of helped me understand that I don't think these are going to go up we just have to get power to it. We put this cell up, and we can put these everywhere. It's not. I don't believe that it's going to be like that. The other thing that was mentioned, 100 feet. We do have that 100 feet. So if something comes in and we don't want it in that location, we have to give them another location, but it's within 100 feet. And then also decorative lighting. We talked about and we tried to read into and understand the decorative lighting component to this, and I believe that this agreement gives us more teeth when it comes to saying you cannot use one of our decorative poles. So what this agreement does is it gives us that guarantee that they can't come to us and say we're gonna stick it here on one of your decorative poles. So that was another very nice, I think, benefit to this agreement.
How does it work with, let's say they feel they need it in a spot that has decorative poles, they can still put their own pole in?
With our ordinance, actually, it's prohibited from our ordinance that they cannot install in one of our ornamental lightings in the historic district. I think.
No, but I mean, like, they won't say, that's fine, I won't put it on your historic light, I'll just stick a pole next to it. like they did at the train station, that crooked 800-foot pole that's sticking up there. I mean, they just kind of showed up one day.
And that's different from the actual attachment to our light poles. That's actually undergrounding, which we have a different ordinance regarding. And I think they did that without authority and the permit to go on our right-of-way. So it's one of those things where people do things late at night and we're not aware of it. We became aware of it, and I think that was rectified.
You mean we rectified something that was done in the middle of the night? Okay, that's good.
I think
All right.
they fixed it, yeah.
Yeah. So I think in general, again, what this really does is, again, I don't know, to your point, Mayor, why would they come in and ask for permission when they can just put their fist down? Very good point. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to be good neighbors. Maybe I'm being a little bit too willing to trust them in this instance, but I think that their hope is that they can get us to agree to X amount of locations. They come in, and then we're out of their way. So for them, it's about coming in, having a good relationship, and being able to proceed, even though we would have to guarantee within 30 days without this agreement that they could move forward. There's still all kinds of challenges that they would have to if we want to, make it difficult for them. And so I'm sure that they realize that. And so I think they're just trying to be, quite honestly, good neighbors. And they want our cooperation, and this is probably the best way they feel like they can get that. And we get, a couple percentage points more, better review option.
All right. Well, look, I do appreciate staffs. I mean, I know I've been nagging you guys to get answers, and so you spent a lot of time with these different entities, so I do appreciate that. Joanne, did you have something?
If I could just ask two questions. One is, how safe are these cell poles? For the neighbors? And how close are they going to be to neighborhoods?
I think there's, at this point, no scientific studies that have supported any of the concerns that citizens may have regarding radioactivities that could be emanating from these small cell facilities. I think that's one of the, the platform that people have been pushing is that they're unsafe, but to this date, there has not been any scientific indication.
But ComEd said the same thing. People swear
Yes.
by, that it is, dangerous.
But we have some of those ComEd facilities that are right next to your house, and you don't know, so.
And as far as proximity to homes, they technically can be on a power pole that is, right out in front of somebody's home. The way that I look at that again is these are typically going to be in those heavily trafficked areas. So you're not going to necessarily, single-family homes, I don't think single-family homes are going to be that draw. It's going to be a mall, it's going to be a college, a high school, it's going to be those locations.
Our stores are right there.
Right, and you're absolutely right. And I think that 100 feet, my hope is that 100 feet gives us that ability to, maybe it's not 1,000 feet away, but it's across the street, which, that 50 feet across the street from right away to right away, 50 feet. If you talk about that plus the frontage of somebody's home, it's much better than what it could be. So I think that 100 feet hopefully can give us some, allowable. Sure. I don't even think we have.
One thing as an update, the FCC recently.
Well, that's a good point. So you're saying, because that was a question I had, the one that's by the high school now was AT&T. I had asked early on, is it 5G?
4G.
It's a 4G.
Yeah. And so that's
Okay.
one of the things that is a question even that we've had. And so it sounds like regardless of what they're going to go to, whether it's 5G, 4G, they are going to start to need these. So I don't know that 5G is necessarily the driver either.
Yeah.
So for what it's worth, right? For what it's worth, I think they're going to be coming no matter what.
One thing to note is that the FCC has a pending order that was in effect since January of 2019 that actually reduced the shot clock in which the city and the municipality had to respond to either approving these application. This agreement is actually longer than what the FCC would require for the city to respond. Also, the FCC recent rule has reduced the application fees that the city can obtain in these applications. So part of the agreement is that you can negotiate something that, you know, that as long as they're willing to pay the extra and give us a little bit longer shot clock to review this application, is a benefit for the city. Otherwise, if we leave it alone, they may come back and say, hey, by the way, FCC has a new order, you need to respond within 30 days, not the 60 days that the state statute allows us to.
Okay. The bottom line is staff feels, like I said, I've certainly put you guys through the ringer to ask questions, so you guys feel confident that this is the better way to go, is to just say, okay, let's work together. All right, I get it. By the way, I'm going to have one of them outside my house, the way my kids draw. Or they're going to have a tower on my window. All right, any other questions? Do a roll call, please.
Okay, Saban. Yes. Schreiber.
Yes.
Bergbauer.
Yes.
Galogly.
Yes.
Deskin. Yes. Lobes.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes.
Coretta.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All righty then. What's next? All right, PW1, the concrete contractor sidewalk program.
Thank you, Mayor. This is PW-1. This evening, we are asking for consideration for our 2020 sidewalk program. This is an annual program that the city has been doing for a number of years. We did budget $120,000. The awards came back. We actually got exceptional bids. I will say exceptional because we actually, if you look at the bid tab in here, we actually put together a number we were thinking was going to be closer to $160,000. So our engineer's estimate, we kind of pushed the envelope a little bit to see if we could get some good numbers, and we did. The low number was $94,962 with J&J Newell Concrete Contractors being the low bidder. So what we're asking for this evening would be $110,000. That additional $15,000, that is for things that come up from now until 4 or 5 weeks from now, which are main breaks, which are going to continue to happen. We replace curb and gutter. We don't do any concrete in-house, so anything that pops up from now until then, we will do as part of this project. The other thing that I just wanted to briefly talk, I don't want to get into a long discussion tonight, that's something we can certainly talk about later, but our concrete program, these are for repairs. So it's not about infill, it's not about putting a sidewalk from Block A to Block B. It is strictly about there's sidewalk there, there's trip hazards, there's ADA complaints, there are tree roots that have popped sidewalk squares. Those are what this program is about. So residents call us, contact us, we go out, we evaluate. Yes, it meets an ADA trip hazard. It is something that needs to be replaced. It's not just a resident calls in and, boy, I'd really like some brand new concrete out in front of my house. We go out and we do evaluate. So these are needs. The other thing, like I mentioned, is if we have a water main break and we have to take out a sidewalk or we have to take out curb, that's what this also goes for. So this project is really, it's about maintenance. It's about replacement of existing, not new. So I just wanted to make that point.
All right, looking for a motion to approve Resolution 20083.
Second?
All right, Mark and Catherine. Any questions? All right, we'll do a roll call, please.
Okay, Saban. Yes. Schreiber.
Yes.
Bergbauer.
Yes.
Galogly.
Yes.
Deskin.
Yes.
Lobes.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes.
Coretta.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, and last tonight, we've got award the Traffic Control Company, the 2020 Pavement Marking Program. So,
PW-2, very similar. This is a project that we've, an annual program, I should say, 2020 Pavement Marking Program. Again, we do try and bid aggressively. We got great bids, great numbers again. just under 60, I guess it's 66,000, right? Yeah, 66 was the award. Engineers estimate 80,000, so again, we got very good bids. We are asking for 85,000. This allows us to go through and, again, fix some additional areas that pop up, but also that what we're planning on doing is just some parking areas. I know City Hall was done last year with that, but Public Works, PD, when we get great bids, we just want to take advantage. So this was MFT dollars that we allocated through IDOT at the beginning of the year. We allocated we asked for 125,000. And like I said, so we're asking for 85,000, which is under our request. So we would ask for council's consideration this evening to award $66,294.93, which was the bid amount. We would actually ask to award $85,000, resolution number 20-084.
All right, looking for a motion. Mark and Catherine, any questions? All right, we'll do a roll call.
Saban. Yes. Schreiber.
Yes.
Ergbauer.
Yes.
Galogly.
Yes.
Deskin.
Yes.
Lobes.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes?
Coretta.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, me friends, anything else?
Could I just ask, when will we start to putting some sidewalks in to kind of, eventually, our goal should be to connect all the streets so that kids can walk and so forth, and even adults. Is there any plan in the near future to have sidewalks?
A couple thoughts on that, and again, we certainly can talk about this at another date, but a couple thoughts. We have in our 2nd to 5th and also 14th to 18th, we have made sure to link up any areas that were not connected. So if we had 1 or 2 houses that were not connected on a block, we made sure that we have connectivity now from point A to point B. The other thing that we did a couple years ago, and every time we have an opportunity when we have our schools, we do our a grant requests. Safe Routes to School, they are very difficult to get. I have applied for several in my career, and they're very difficult to get. There's not a lot of money out there, and a lot of places do go after them. The other thing that it gets a little tricky is some of the areas that we have voids are not in the city, and so we have these points where you're walking in the city, and then you get to an unincorporated, and we've had long discussions at council about that, and the directive, at least my understanding is that we've wanted to avoid installing sidewalk in areas that are outside the city. So again, not to make this a long discussion tonight, but we do have a map. We have a map that we've got our areas that need infill. It's something that we can certainly bring to council for discussion. We can put some preliminary price tags on it, and we can continue to apply for grants. But that's the message, I guess, that we have filled. If you go, and I'm really looking forward to this later this year. We did an aerial, so we had a drone come out. Yes, thanks, Ben. We had a drone come out, and they did a pre, and we're going to be able to do a post, 2nd to 5th, and also 14th to 18th, and that's going to really show you all the fill that we were able to do. I mean, when you get to drive through here now, you get to see that connectivity, and you get to see people walking. It's very nice. It's very exciting, and something that, yes, across the city we'd love to do. We've been able to do it in pockets, but
There are some areas that I think we could possibly have some sidewalks. If there's any way that we can discuss that a little bit further.
Yeah, the connectivity and.
The bike program won't go as far, though, as, some of these, streets.
I agree with you, Joanne. I think the best thing we can do to start is each, alder person, just if you've got something specific in mind, like, man, this neighborhood is not connected to anything, just bring it to us, right?
Continuation is really
Yeah.
a lot
Because
of
we
it,
can,
is continuation.
We can add a gap here or there in each year as we do an annual concrete program. We're not saying we won't fill them in.
No, but, yeah.
Citywide, it's millions of dollars, and it's not in the CIP, and
And it's okay, just get it down. If there's specific things that you're thinking of, let Brent know. We've seen in the past where sometimes, there's, disagreement about going across an unincorporated parcel or so, but sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Just depends. I mean, the one that got denied, it was a rather extensive problem that had to get negotiated, and so, but whatever. My suggestion is for all the aldermen, it is come specifics, so.
Is that something we can add in the budget, an extra 50,000 a year toward it? I mean, if you're doing 100,000 for repair, replace, to just say every year we get, I don't know, I'm just asking, is that
As a
something?
council, we can put all of our budget on pens if we
Well,
wanted
I
to.
mean,
So
if
we
that's.
can do it.
If that's like 50 more squares or whatever every year, is that something we can consider or not really? Or you need a funding mechanism for it?
What I would ask is that we have this map, and maybe we can try to locate some priorities, and again, we can talk at a later time, prioritize, and then we can really determine if 25 were to do it, or if one year we want to budget another 100 to make this real, this connection that's really gonna to connect A to B. So if we could prioritize, we've got the map prepared. I think let you guys take a look, and yeah.
All right. Anything else there, friends? All right, looking for a motion to adjourn? Seconded by Joanne, all in favor? All right.